Get your team apparel now at shop.eslgaming.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to week number 3 of ESL's King of the Hill. My name is TJ, and once again, I'm joined by That's Admirable. Admirable, how you doing today, man?
Doing fantastic. Just got off a flight here, and really looking forward to seeing these guys play. I've worked with 2 of these guys pretty closely in the past, and looking forward to seeing what they bring with a couple of new cards in the mix.
New cards, that is right. Karazhan week 1 has been allowed into the deck submission for week number 3 here. And we're going to see if Ostkaka can defend his throne as ESL King of the Hill. But if this is your first time tuning in, we'll go over the format and the rules for the ESL King of the Hill. It is a single elimination bracket. The open winner from the previous week goes up against an invited player. This week it's DemiGod as the open winner and Cydonia as the invited player. And the winner of that will face off against the previous week's king. It is best of 7 conquest, but it's with a self-ban, which is pretty interesting. We didn't really get to see it utilized as much last week, but it has the possibility for some crazy stuff.
Yeah, the fact that you can ban out one of your own decks rather than having to ban out one of your opponents means you're very likely to face Warrior a lot in this style of format. And it allows you to take a little bit more risks, I'd say, with a few of the decks. And if your opponent happens to have a lineup that's not looking particularly good for one of your decks, just go ahead and tuck that one away, protect it like a little puppy, and just play the list that you're comfortable with at that point. Exactly.
Allows you to bring some crazy decks that might or might not counter the meta that you think will happen, and then ban away if you were wrong. So pretty cool. And then, of course, the winner returns as the king next week. So let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket today. I mentioned earlier the players, DemiGod, a player who made a name for himself by taking top 4 at ESL Legendary Series last year. Since then, just rank 1s with Aggro Shaman here and there. And he'll go off against Cydonia, who's the reigning spring champion for the Americas region.
Spring champion indeed, and Cydonia just feels like he's been putting out such strong performances since then. You know, I feel like at that particular spring championship, you know, the nerves maybe come into effect a little bit there, but what I've seen from him lately, I'm pretty impressed. DemiGod, a player I've worked pretty closely with, and I'll talk a little bit more about in depth that was getting into the matchup. And Ostkaka, you know, practiced with him quite a bit as well, and in a few chats with him as well, and seen his thoughts on the way some of the decks roll out. This is a tough one that's going to have to beat here with Ostkaka. Took down Tice last week, who is a history of winning a lot of those King of the Hills in the past. So either one of these two, I think, a very strong opponent for Ostkaka, but whew, that guy just feels like he gets better and better every time.
Yes, it does. The reigning world champion. We got to see a rematch of last year's semifinals last week, as you mentioned, which is pretty cool. It was some very high-level play across the board, and we'll see if the same is going to continue this week. So let's take a look at the schedule for today. Just going to be 2 matches. It's going to be Cydonia versus DemiGod right now, and then the winner will take on Ostkaka after approximately 2:30.
Yeah, approximately 2:30. That's where it's slated for. But yeah, as TJ said, it's going on right now. They're in game number 1, but we're going to talk first. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we also have some Overwatch going on
later on today.
Yeah.
That's right. And today it's actually going to be almost immediately after the Hearthstone broadcast.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of both, if you're specifically here for the Overwatch or specifically here for the Hearthstone, you're wrong, because you should specifically be here for King of the Hill, which encompasses both.
I was on TJ's podcast where he hosted a segment specifically for me called You're Just Wrong.
Yeah.
I was really happy to be featured on that. Thank you, TJ.
Yeah. Followed up by the second segment, which is You're a Friggin' Liar, if you're not here for both games.
That was also literally a part of it. We're using literally the right way.
Yeah. Well, of course, DemiGod did qualify through the Open, and you yourself at home have a chance to qualify for the King of the Hill as well. If you want to sign up for the Open for next week, you can head over to esl.gg/KOTHHS. It's a really cool Open tournament. It uses a Swiss format, and the winner of that Open gets to compete in the next week's King of the Hill broadcast. So DemiGod has been an Open grinder for a long time, and you could start your Open grinding by signing up for this event.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me, they say all the time, they say, Admirable, how do I get started in competitive Hearthstone? The answer is check out these Open Cups that take place. And this is a really good one. One of the reasons it's so good is because of that Swiss format.
Yeah.
If you want to build tournament experience, you're going to play a lot of tournaments that are open cups that have single or double elimination brackets. For that ESL event, your record does not influence whether or not you keep playing. It's the number of rounds that influence how much you get to play. So you can just go round after round after round and continue competing. It's also a lot less stressful in terms of your schedule. You can set aside the time to play. Just play as much as you want.
Yeah.
Drop out anytime you want if that's your cup of tea. Personally, I like winning tournaments instead of dropping out of them. But
that's what floats your boat.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do it. Nobody's going to stop you.
No.
There's limited spots, so make sure you guys head over there and sign up right now to make sure that you get there. Everything's happening right now.
Everything's happening right now.
Don't let life pass you by.
We're in a right now kind of world.
And also, Admirable, we mentioned it briefly in the beginning of the broadcast, but new cards, man. New Karazhan cards.
Yeah.
Ivory Knight in the mix, which has been making its way into Paladin decks. There's Pantry Spider. Who knows? Who knows what the possibilities are?
Yeah,
with
who
Pantry
knows?
Spider.
I know what the possibility for it's probably in that collection, or maybe you can evolve it too. I mean, it's a pretty solid evolve target.
Yeah.
I'd
You
say.
get 2 4-drops because they both count as 3-drops.
It's pretty decent with Flame Tongue Totem as well. I mean, I got to give a credit to that. I mean, you got to give credit where that credit's due. Stuff that affects lots of minions is where that card's going to be useful. But my favorite new card is in the mix, which is Priest of the Feast. Lots of healing potential.
Of the Feast. You need to think there's only 3 players. Statistics tell us that none of those 3 players are going to bring Priest. If 0% of players across the world bring Priest to tournaments, then 0% of these 3 players would. But Ostkaka brought Priest.
Yeah, but we're jumping into Cydonia versus DemiGod, game number 1. Looks like it's going to be a good old-fashioned warrior mirror match here. And I mentioned I'd get a little bit more in-depth on DemiGod here. And I guess now's the perfect time to do that. Working closely with DemiGod, it's a player I found has very strong instincts. But something that he can become victim to from himself from time to time is really overthinking circumstances. He needs to calm himself down. He needs to really focus on what he feels his gut instinct is telling him to do. If DemiGod starts overthinking scenarios and situations, he can really struggle because he'll go way too far down the rabbit hole. So in this match, look for that. If DemiGod's playing a little bit more quickly than I usually give people kind of, flack for when they play so quickly, he's kind of the one exception to the rule in my experience. I think he should be playing what his gut tells him to.
Definitely. And DemiGod, since he is an open tournament grinder, you're probably going to see him play consistent decks. But the thing about the meta right now is the consistent decks are also the ones that are just played in tournaments. The way Conquest works is that you get one with all your decks, so it lends itself more to consistency rather than trying to counter what you think might be brought and have an inconsistent lineup. So DemiGod is very proficient on Aggro Shaman. I mean, he basically created some of those popular variants of Aggro Shaman that you might have seen in the ladder over the past 5 months. Dragon Warrior. Of course, you can see it in your screen right now. Yogg Druid, Zoo Warlock, these are all his bread and butter. The one thing, though, is DemiGod prides himself in also being a Paladin expert, and he was really happy now that Paladin has gotten some extra tools with Ivory Knight in order to try and contend in the meta. He did bring Paladin.
Yep. Really looking forward to seeing the Paladin decks built, too. I think it's kind of a wide open class. I mean, it could just very well be aggro. I know DemiGod loves to play aggressive strategies. Chooses to hold on to the Fairy Dragon on turn 2 for a situation exactly like this one. Wants to be able to activate Twilight Guardian and Blackwing Corruptor. If that becomes the case, of course, he's going to go right against that on turn 3 here. And just go ahead and use the Fiery War Axe and drop the Fairy Dragon. So ignore what I just said about that.
One thing about this matchup is you can't really fall behind, but you sort of always expect your Fairy Dragon to get Fiery War Axed. And so sometimes you can hold on to it if you want to get greedy, but you can't really fall behind because this matchup's a lot about tempo. If you lose the tempo, you lose the game. Save the cheerleader, save the girl.
Tempo is definitely a big part of this one. Kind of contrasting the 2 players is really interesting to me as well, because Cydonia strikes me as a very astute player who is paying attention to a lot of details, like looking at where the cards came from in your hand. Understanding that if you didn't do something on a particular turn where it was strong for you, that he will very aggressively attack that style of line. It's a very different style than what DemiGod has, and both of them are successful players. To me, that's one of the most interesting things about this match.
Cydonia even goes back and reads the lore of his cards to really understand the roots.
Same.
Why am I playing this card in the first place? Where in the world of Warcraft
Is Carmen Sandiego?
Is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah.
Where's Waldo? I mean, he just asked the big questions.
He's right there.
He does have to move. Running out of time here. Really, his only options were Twilight Guardian, but without a dragon, so 2/6 without taunt, or Cork on a lead. Might have been thinking about the trades, but
The Frowning Berserker was interesting to me.
Yeah,
But I think
suppose.
it's a little bit weaker because he's got second Fiery War Axe in hand.
Yeah.
He's anticipating having to drop this Frowning Berserker and second Fiery War Axe on turn 5. And given that he played Fairy Dragon, it was very clear the reason Fairy Dragon was played was to combat a turn exactly like Twilight Guardian from Cydonia. So now that that's happened, I'm guessing DemiGod is just almost under no circumstances playing the Twilight Guardian before the Frowning Berserker.
Yeah.
Given that Blackwing Corruptor is still in the build as well, Twilight Guardian's activating Blackwing Corruptor. Not only that, but just a 2/6 by itself is not a very good play. Like, needs another dragon to activate that, which is kind of, that's where he got put in a weird spot with that Fairy Dragon. So I would tend to say he's a little bit behind here, but not by much.
Yeah. So Cydonia, looking at a Corcoran Elite's trade here, doesn't feel good, especially since your opponent got 4 damage in with their Corcoran Elite, and now you're going to kill theirs with yours. His only real other option is to play Fairy Dragon, maybe Blood to Ichor, to try and make both things on the board contest and guarantee he has something else. But it's a very risky play.
See, this is the risky play to me. He's a little bit ahead on board. I'm sorry, on life total. So when he ends up building this tension with this, the only thing he really gets punished by is exactly Blackwing Corruptor.
Or
DemiGod's not only going to have a Blackwing Corruptor in one of his 5 cards, but he's also going to have a dragon in one of those 5 cards as well. So it's not too terribly likely that he gets punished by Blackwing Corruptor here. And he's going to in this spot. And this is the exact thing that Cydonia did not want to see, was a Blackwing Corruptor.
yeah, I mean, DemiGod is also thinking about merits behind playing Frothing Berserker and attacking you with Fiery War Axe. I think he held on to Frothing Berserker last turn, like you mentioned, for maybe this reason. Having something to attack with Fiery War Axe and being able to play Frothing Berserker. Frothing Berserker, it's not, I don't know if it's getting much better at this stage. And having, like, what's more threatening? A Frothing Berserker that's growing? Or a Blackwing Corrupt that's a 5/4?
Well, I can tell you the Blackwing Corruptor is not getting much better either.
That's true.
And it's rare that I think players should deviate, but he picked up kind of the perfect card for that situation.
And also, I mean, he's already at 17 life. He takes 4 more. He doesn't really have armor up in the cards for the next couple turns, so he's already going down to 13. A little bit scary. It activates the Draconid Crusher, so...
No execute in hand either, so he's got to be mindful. He has to be able to answer Draconid Crusher going into his turn 7.
Yeah.
Since he doesn't have execute, I don't think he can afford the life loss at this point.
Yeah.
Not only that, but say Cydonia just played another Corcoran Elite and attacks his face again.
Yeah.
If he'd have been at 13 instead, something's at 9. At 9 is like a Grom will kill you from 9. It's very hard to find time to armor up in this matchup a lot of times.
A Stiff Breeze will kill you at 9.
You know, it might need to be like a Stiff Breeze with you know, like a Frostbolt and a couple Ice Lances, but yeah, Stiff Breeze will do it.
Imagine being an actual Stiff Breeze and then a Frostbolt comes and hits you in the face. And then if you were carrying a weapon around, you would no longer be able to attack anything with it. So, you know, the real-life implications of some of these things.
Very serious.
Ooh, no. Still no dragon picked up to activate the Twilight Guardian.
This is where DemiGod's going to have his first, what I would call weak turn. It's not necessarily weak, but he's playing a bit off curve here. And again, he's still very worried about Draconid Crusher, so that's going to influence a lot of how this turn gets played.
To be honest, though, looking at his hand, I don't think there's any way that he can play around going below 15.
Right.
He's going to have to make an attack with his Fireworks. I think the play that jumps out to me the most right off the bat is Frothing Berserker, attack the Fairy Dragon, and then make the trade into the Corcoran Elite with the 2/2. Maybe even just ignore it and go face to push your opponent down below 15.
I do kind of like ignoring it, actually.
The 2/2?
Yeah, I think ignoring it's really interesting here, too, because the Frothing Berserker will grow if you choose to trade.
Yeah.
But you're getting kind of the same amount of damage if you choose to trade versus choose to go face, but the face just guarantees you something. And so he might end up trading into the 2/2 here and leaving himself a little bit weak to Ravaging Ghoul in favor of the Frothing Berserker dealing enough return damage. But if he just pushes face there, Cydonia, if he Fiery War Axes the Frothing Berserker and then runs the 2/2 in, he's really low at that. I mean, he's going to be at 10, and you still have a 4/1 on board with a Fiery War Axe.
Yeah.
So in that instance, quite literally a Stiff Breeze is going to over Cydonia at that point, because all the rest of the damage in the deck is at least 3. Alex Straw's champion, Blackwing Corruptor, the Grom that's sitting in hand, doesn't need an activator if his opponent's at 3. So I think this nod is a little bit more conservative. But the thing about it is this one gets punished by some really significant stuff. Like, I'm thinking like Ravaging Ghoul Execute here is kind of lights out.
Yeah.
And that's a situation where DemiGod I feel like probably pushing face was better than making the value trade.
Even just, you know, Ravaging Ghoul, because he has a Fireworks equipped. Yeah, you're going to take 5, but you clear the board, you get initiative. If he has another 3-drop to go along with it, he's scared. But Cydonia just doesn't have a good answer. He's going to have to forego development this turn and just use his minions and his spell to clear.
Yep.
This gives DemiGod complete initiative over the board.
That's a nice pickup, too.
I suppose.
The thing about it is DemiGod, I guarantee, was feeling unsafe in this spot.
Yeah.
He's at 14. He just saw Cydonia take his time to clear the board. And so the situation I imagine DemiGod's thinking is he really wanted to play Draconid Crusher, but had to answer the board this turn instead. Because Frothing Berserker is a major win condition.
Yes.
So DemiGod guaranteed is fearing Draconid Crusher right now. And if that's not the case, which unless Cydonia picks up this next turn it won't be, the Execute's going to leave him super comfortable on turn 8 and following, because the answer's kind of the similar size stuff, where Ragnaros is now checked, Grom can get checked. It's a really critical card. While I definitely think there's better draws for him, he feels very safe drawing it.
Yeah. And if that's the case, he's going to hold on to that Ravaging Ghoul because of the synergy it has with Execute. So just playing the Twilight Guardian. Doesn't have a friend, so he is going to be a little bit sad.
This isn't Toy Story.
No,
Yeah.
it's Dragon Story.
Yeah. No dragons.
It's the same thing. And Twilight Guardian is Woody. And Deathwing is Buzz Lightyear.
Deathwing is Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, when Buzz Lightyear comes in, it's just
I guess it makes sense. Buzz
What
Lightyear,
up?
he cost you a lot.
What up, Buzz Lightyear?
He does a lot of stuff.
Everybody
when he shows up.
leaves.
Yeah. Nobody really likes him.
Yeah. All right, well, Sir Finley might be able to pick up something decent. You can see Steady Shot, Fire Blast, Life Tap
Honestly,
are the options here.
it's very rare that I feel like all your options from Finley are just bad. But Cydonia being behind and this sort of now being a race to deal that final blow, I'm looking at Fire Blast probably being the best bet here, so that if he hits turn 10, he can just Grom, have an activator, get him.
Yeah.
And I think that's the game plan here. Because look at the board state and look at what turns are rolling into. How often is Fire Blast really going to make a difference?
Yeah.
It also makes Execute a live draw.
Yeah, and you know, Steady Shot is, you're probably not going to have time to fit in enough Steady Shots to make it worth it, whereas Fire Blast in this case is an extra 6 damage.
Now that's a bad draw.
Yeah, but, you know, he does have just a Fireworks swing, a Grom to throw into the Frothing Berserker, and he hits face for 2. Like, that's
what I'm thinking. You might leave the Finley alone with the Grom out. You may just decide to hold the Fireworks back. The Grom is definitely the play. That much is for certain.
Yeah.
But Execute's already active here, and what is this 1 point of damage actually doing to the game right now? It's kind of nothing.
Yeah, I suppose. All right. Well,
It's desperation time. Cydonia needs to find Execute at this point. The Grom doesn't contest.
well, okay, so what is, okay, yeah. I was going to say, what are the chances that your opponent has Execute? Maybe you can guarantee a trade, but that is not looking good.
This is one of the reasons why I think that DemiGod should have held on to the Fiery War Axe as well. Is in this spot, he could have just pushed Cydonia to 15 and then had 15 the following turn.
Maybe not.
No cards.
Maybe not really thinking about it too much. You see a minion on the board, see a minion kill minion.
That'll do it. For the Lifebinder and for the Dragon Queen. This time it's for Magni Bronzebeard in reality, and more so for DemiGod. Going to take point 1 here and get that Warrior deck out of the way. And so it's kind of just how the Warrior matchup goes. It snowballs very quickly, and like you mentioned, you lose the board, you tend to lose the game. Cydonia was forced into an incredibly weak turn on turn 6 where he was just answering stuff instead of actually making use of the cards.
Yeah.
So just falls behind, takes too much damage.
Some promising things from Cydonia there. Recognizing Cork and Elite needs to go face in the turn where he had the option to trade it. Recognizing that Fire Blast is going to be his only out to win. Recognizing that he needs to execute in the last moment using the Azure Drake instead of the Grom. So definitely some solid play overall. It's just, like you said, such a snowbally matchup. It's one of the reasons why currently Warrior is the top ban when it comes to these sort of popular lineups. Actually, when it comes to most lineups, Warrior is the top ban because so volatile. You know, Dragon Warrior is one of the strongest classes in the game, or strongest archetypes in the game, with Warrior being one of the strongest classes in the game, if not the strongest. So definitely something to keep in mind looking forward as we have the self-ban. So
yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement with you here too. Cydonia played the game very well, I would say, given what was dealt here. The big one was the pickup from DemiGod on turn 5. That was like what almost dictated the game at that point. He hit Jin on the Blackwing Corruptor. And that the face push, I think, is still right, because it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent when they attack you for 4.
Yeah.
And you're just willing to attack them back for 4. Like, think about being in that position as the player who's getting the return attack. You're like, wow, really? You're just willing to do that? So you could kind of just ignore it once you drop Blackwing Corruptor.
Yeah.
But prior to that, he probably would have had to trade in his core currently. Like, using the Fiery War Axe to take the damage there is frightening.
You already go down to 13.
Yeah.
So many things scare you much more at that point. So, yeah, DemiGod's going to go up 1 game. Looking at their classes overall, they have almost the same lineup, except Cydonia brought Rogue and DemiGod brought Paladin, sort of that 5th spot. The rest of the decks are the same: Warrior, Warlock, Druid, Shaman. That's the core. DemiGod's Paladin, Cydonia's Rogue, but their bans are where they differ here, because Cydonia banned away his own Rogue. And, that's normal. That's a standard thing. Rogue is not as good against the control stuff, but not good against the standard stuff. DemiGod banned his own Druid. Druid, considered probably in that 2nd slot of one of the most consistent decks right now. And he opted to play his Paladin deck instead of playing his Druid deck.
Which is really interesting to me, because we saw Tice kind of do the same thing last week, where he ended up banning Druid out of his lineup. And I'm not going to say it cost him, because Druid was definitely a big struggle in that one. But if you take a look at the Europe preliminaries from this past weekend, one of the reasons why Warlock is so played is because Zoo is thought to have a very good matchup versus Druid, one of the top decks right now. Druid actually went 55% versus Warlock over the course of the entire field.
Nuts. Yeah.
And that's something that you do not see very often. And so what I'm wondering with it is Druid not built well enough right now for the matchups that are out there?
I think the Zoos.
That's what I'm thinking. I think the Zoos might not be built in the right way right now. Like, this may just be a completely different style of archetype that we're looking for. Cydonia banning out the Druid, though, is just very weird to me. It's strong versus Warlock, I'd say. It's pretty decent versus Warrior.
Yeah.
Like, what on earth actually beats the Druid? It's like Druid mirrors, kind of, one of the ways you take that down.
It's tough to say.
And versus Paladin, I want Druid.
Oh, well, DemiGod banned his own Druid.
That's what...
So he'll be playing Paladin.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Versus Rogue, I want the Druid.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah.
Just kidding. That's probably the reason why, honestly, if you take a look at it. So
but then you think about it, like, you're trying next level. I'm like, Cydonia is probably going to ban away his own Rogue.
But it's almost what I would think here. I just can't imagine banning away the Druid in this situation. I mean, you know me. I'm just going to bring the 5th class ban and play the core.
Yeah.
But
that's pretty much what most people like. We said Oskaka brought Priest, and we were saying, like, maybe he just brought Priest to ban away his own
here's
Priest.
what I'm saying.
We'll see.
If Oskaka plays versus DemiGod, because Paladin's in the lineup, that Priest is going to stay. If he plays versus Cydonia, because Rogue is in the lineup, Priest is gone.
But the thing is, I think it might be Murloc Paladin, in which case Priest is not good.
I think it's fine.
I mean,
Murloc doesn't 30 you anymore.
They get pretty close.
Yeah.
You can, like, equip a Truce over and then kill him, right? Because it's 28.
That's a lot. It really is.
So
okay, I can see that.
You can pretty much 30 him. It's very scary.
You got a lot of stuff to do that.
Yeah.
What if he could just entomb a Murloc War Leader?
Yeah.
Yeah, GG.
Oh, yeah, Tomb of War Leader, yeah. I mean, if you have Entomb for the, like, that's a very inconsistent way to win that matchup. But
Cydonia going to go with his strongest start here with Tunnel Trog and Lightning Bolt on the Voidwalker. And this is terrifying if you're DemiGod all of a sudden.
Yeah, but Crazed Alchemist, I talked about it at prelims last week. Crazed Alchemist has gotten to the point where it's not even considered a tech card anymore. It's since there's so many weak 2-drops in the game, it's almost sort of becoming a core 2-drop now because of the fact that it's got so much flexibility. You can, like, flip around your Imp Gang boss to trade up. You can flip around buffed cards to give them permanent stats. And then, of course, the standard use, which is to flip around a Doomsayer to really, like, make those matches better. But in this case, you go from a terrible situation where you're almost guaranteed a loss if that 2-drops a Direwolf Alpha, a Dark Peddler, even a Flame Juggler is probably going to get traded up into it. And you flip it around, you get the good trade. The only thing that punishes here, which would punish every 2-drop, would be another Lightning Bolt or a Rock Biter. I'm really starting to like Crazed Alchemist even more so than I was in the past.
See, to me, when Crazed Alchemist has sort of become the standard drop in Zoo, that's when it's time to reevaluate the way we build this deck. That's what I'm thinking with it. Doesn't work here for DemiGod, though. Ends up with Imp Gang Boss versus Argent Squire with that shield. And so Cydonia, I think, pretty happy to pick up a 3-drop here and really able to evaluate all of his options.
Yeah, Tuskar Totemic is the play that stands out to me the most. But the thing is, unless you get Totem Golem, there's not really anything that's going to improve your position too much on the board.
Mana Tide would be great.
Mana Tide
here.
would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that
every other totem would be pretty bad.
his basic totems I think are pretty poor aside from Taunt Totem. I think we go with the Tuskar here because Healing Totem, Spell Power Totem, and the 1/1 Totem, they're pretty mediocre.
And Flame Tongue even might be pretty...
I think Flame Tongue's fine here. And the reason I think Flame Tongue's fine is because he's got Feral Spirit.
Yeah.
So the positioning on this, you actually don't want the Flame Tongue to lay next to the Art Spire, in my opinion, so that you can put a Feral Spirit next to it. He's going to go with Feral Spirit now, which is really indicating Abusive Sergeant next turn. Like, he's going to have to find a trade somewhere. And this is honestly kind of a risky play, I think, from Cydonia. In the event of Defender of Argus here, this is looking like just an absolute nightmare. Your opponent got to get a 4-drop out of their hand. They're going to get 2 tokens.
I think Tuskar Totemic is the risky one. Because Tuskar Totemic, you have like a 50% chance to just dud. You have a 50% chance to just do nothing, almost. You give your opponent almost a free trade. And so this one is like more consistent. You know exactly how much stuff you're putting on the board.
Well, this is, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree here because I think following up with the Feral Spirit once the Imp King boss has been weakened is a lot better than following up with the Tuskar Totemic once you've lost your Feral Spirits. That's where my thought process is.
Yeah. But either way, this is a zoo, so he's gonna have a lot of trouble. This matchup traditionally has been pretty good, and Prelim sort of proved that a little bit. Shaman's definitely struggled against Zoo. Shaman struggled against a lot of the field, actually. It was pretty surprising.
That deck's the one deck I think that has a major target on its forehead right now.
Sure, yeah.
Is you expect everyone to bring it. You're likely to ban Warrior instead of banning Shaman, and there's not too many Shaman builds. So if you build specifically for one or the other, let's just say that the matchups are 50-50 across the board. Like everyone is split between mid-range and aggressive. You just get the right target half the time.
Yeah.
Against Warrior, if you try to build specifically for one Warrior archetype, you're just probably never going to get it unless it's Dragon Warrior.
Yeah. And so we saw a really big evolution where in Spring Prelim, Shaman had a ban target on its head. Whereas this one, it was just Warrior all day long being banned away. And it wasn't even
24/7 Warrior channel.
Yeah, Shaman wasn't even like the second ban. It was Warlock became the second ban.
Yeah. That's another one that's really strong to ban, I think, because it allows you to adapt the rest of your deck so much differently.
It lets you play Shaman without putting Lightning Storm in. So that can be a big deal.
Fantastic turn set up in front of him. This is about to snowball out of control for Cydonia. Now he's no recovery mechanic in hand.
Yeah.
But this is another problem with not playing the Tuskar, by the way, is now your high roll means a lot less on the Totem Golem or on the Mana Tide Totem than it did on the previous turn.
Yeah. So both these plays are no.
Honestly, I don't mind life tapping here.
Yeah, you're so far ahead. You're going to clear the board anyway. You might as well try and get more resources. But if you only play Knife Struggle this turn, it's a pretty weak turn. Maybe you just want to guarantee multiple targets.
Well, this is a turn also you get some
Defender?
pretty decent information. So you know that Cydonia is overloaded for one. So there's no Doomhammer dropping down. So having a weak board in this position will only be weak to Lightning Storm.
Yeah.
There's not really any other swing card that Cydonia is going to have available.
Yeah.
And so the information I think you got last turn was that Doomhammer's not in Cydonia's hand. The information I think you're getting this turn is, does my opponent have Lightning Storm in his hand? DemiGod's actually just going to push damage here.
This was the play that I liked the least out of all of his options.
It's not too bad, but I definitely don't think it's the strongest, and it's because of Flame Tongue and Abusive Sergeant.
Yeah.
If only one or the other was in the build, different story. I think you push face. The fact that there's 2 of those in there, and Cydonia has been clearly trying to line up some minions left on the board, and has been struggling to do that, to me says that Abusive Sergeant and Flame Tongue are pretty darn likely.
Yeah. So this is sort of a play around Lightning Storm, making your board as...
I think this is just the push for damage is what this is.
Yeah, but I don't know if damage is even that relevant. If you take control of the board against Shaman, you're going to win.
It's a different approach than I'm used to. I'm not going to deny that. But again, DemiGod's an instinct player. I think that this thought here was just something deep down is telling him, I need to start hitting him.
Yeah.
And this is where we ended up. So we're going to see where this ends up going. This is a little bit punished, but he did get an extra 5. He did get an extra 7 damage last turn. I mean, that's significant.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see how much this play pays off for DemiGod. He does have a pretty good play for this turn with Knife Juggler plus Defender of Argus. If he can manage to snipe this Abusive Sergeant, or even get the shield off the Ardent Squire, could be a pretty big deal.
I am a little bit curious where this ends up going, because if he goes with Knife Juggler Defender of Argus, he needs to trade over the Totem Golem. And that's a deviation of what we saw last turn, where he pushed 7 damage to face. The fact that he was likely to get in a situation like this is the reason I think the push to face last turn is weaker than the trade.
Yeah.
It's simply because when he finds himself in the same spot, now we have to deviate the game plan. Now what is that 7 damage done?
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see. If he goes with the same gameplay he did last time,
he's gonna get eaten alive.
Yeah.
That's like the way he loses if he lets that Knife Juggler go.
Well, if he would probably be like Direwolf Alpha Defender of Argus. But even then, it's like not even pushing any more damage.
If he lets either of the 3/3 gods go,
it's gotta be Knife Juggler, yeah. All right, I like the trade first.
This is interesting. I wonder if he's thinking about only taunting up the Knife Juggler here. That would be ludicrous.
No, he's going for the 1 and 3 Abusive Sergeant. No.
Still pretty decent, but not as good as it would have been had he taken that first trade 2 turns ago. So, Cydonia left with Tuskar Totemic, praying to the gods. Whiff.
Yeah.
Knife Juggler's got to go.
Yeah. You're not worried about that 5 damage because this matchup's not about the health race. It's all about the board. And actually, the Dark Iron Dwarf is going to be easier to trade in the future than the Knife Juggler anyway. So,
yeah, this is likely, I think, to go completely downhill from here. So like I said, it's pretty hard to end up punishing Zoo once they get even slightly ahead. They start drawing 2 cards a turn. You aren't drawing 2 cards a turn. Direwolf Alpha, ironically, would have been much better last turn, but it's still pretty darn good. Full clear here for DemiGod if he wants to, followed up by Forbidden Ritual. I'm going to guess that he's taking out this Tuskar Totemic, but given what we've seen, he may just value trade with the Defender of Argus and push 5. That will clear off and will not trade into that Searing Totem. The push 5 at this point, I think, is very warranted.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it was Lightning Storm or bust that turn for Cydonia and doesn't pick it up. I feel like in a format like this, you sort of are forced to bring Lightning Storm because you can't form a strategy around, say, banning Zoo.
Yeah.
We saw some Shamans. We've seen Shamans over the past month or two cut Lightning Storm only when their plan is to ban Zoo. And they sort of tech against Dragon Warrior a little bit. But nowadays, especially if you're playing a format like this where you almost are guaranteed to play against Zoo and Druid, you definitely have to bring Lightning Storm deck, or you're basically conceding almost both of those matchups to Zoo. Or not conceding them, but you're saying, my matchup's going to be much weaker. Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 10 damage for DemiGod. Not counting any of the draws. Make that 14 damage. Well, we're starting with Life Tap, that's for sure. DemiGod actually may have to find a couple of trades here. I mean, but sending your opponent to 4 is... that's good.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be trades now.
Yeah, Darkshire Councilman is a big pickup because that... It gives him an excuse to make trades.
Yeah.
Not that he needed one, but it gives him an excuse to make trades, and it also fits his curve. Like, super well. Imagine if you picked a 1-drop there, float a bunch of mana, Lightning Storm again, like, beast him the next turn. So
there's any merit to Power Overwhelming here.
I think 1 Power Overwhelming is fine.
You'd lose 2 minions if you choose not to Power Overwhelming. I think Power Overwhelming's better here. I'm curious if it still sets up a 2-turn lethal if you Power Overwhelming here, though. That's kind of the question here, is look at the board and see where it goes.
But doesn't matter.
Cutting the risk sets up like an inevitable lethal, and that's probably the more important facet here. Yeah, so he's just even going to trim versus an unlikely second Flame Tongue Totem. Lava Burst gets picked up, but this is going to be no help. The game is snowballed. Yeah. Cydonia cannot win this game.
Cydonia is drawing 1 card a turn. DemiGod is drawing 2 cards a turn.
Launching 5-point damage spells into 3-cost minions.
On average, Cydonia's draws might be a little bit better.
Hey, look at that. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 damage for DemiGod here.
Well, you play him out, you tap, see if you can pick up an Abusive Sergeant for the win.
Power Overwhelming. You attack for 2, then you play Doomguard, then you tap. There we go. That's a sequence, I think.
Yeah.
Who dares summon me?
Show me that tap. Sea Giant.
be me. I always love when the big guys show up like right when the fight's ending.
Yeah. Somebody need a date. That was my impression of a sea giant.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, he does pick up Feral Spirit, so won't die this turn.
Probably won't die this turn. Just 1 point of damage is all that's needed. Dark Peddler should be able to pick it up.
I'm telling you, right, I would not buy or sell anything to that guy. I just look at him.
Buying or selling.
Neither, man. I'm going home.
I'd probably buy something. There's something that you just buy anywhere.
Oh my.
Buying
Well,
I'm not buying from his brother
Chance
either,
number
that's for
two.
sure.
Uh,
Voidwalker.
yeah, sure.
All right, so fairly poor trades for DemiGod, but he gets to add a Sea Giant and a Voidwalker to the board. I don't think he can be too disappointed about this. Well, hang on. Play that. Well,
He can still play
Yeah.
everything. Doesn't matter.
yeah, you're right. I was like, wait. I was like, oh, the extra mana doesn't actually do it. He's utilizing more mana this way, actually. Wonderful play by DemiGod to utilize more mana.
All of his mana utilization stat is
Off the charts.
off the charts. Blowback, average.
Did like that quite a bit. Then he gets bested in game number 2. DemiGod up 2 points now. See why he's such a strong player. I mean, pushing the damage ended up being a little bit weaker, but you could kind of see where his game plan was going. It was kind of like what Cydonia did in game number 1, where if he doesn't have an answer to this, it's free.
Yeah.
It's like the damage just becomes free at that point. I think Cydonia had a lot more reason to do it in game number 1 than DemiGod did in game number 2. But once he got ahead, he was staying ahead. There was no coming back.
Yeah. So DemiGod 2-0 lead now over the reigning America's champion for the spring season, and this got to be good practice for these guys too.
Oh yeah, I mean the tournament's coming this week.
Prelims coming up this weekend with the same pool of cards. Decks were due at 9 a.m. this morning. I know because I qualified.
Did you submit your decks?
No, I didn't. I'm casting instead. I know all my fans would be disappointed. All three of them. That I'm
You can make
casting
that
instead of
forward with
playing.
me, by the way.
What's that?
I'm a big fan of TJ.
4 fans.
You should be too.
Actually, I was counting you. So I was counting you as 2 actually.
My mom, my dad. Admirable. I mean, he's so big. Look, I'm losing the weight. Eventually, I won't be too.
My dad's not a big fan of me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'll be back, guys.
Got up really fast.
Yeah. I'm kidding. My dad just doesn't know much about video games.
I mean, what dad does?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. But in the meantime, while I go cry about my dad, we're going to have to go to a quick break. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back. Hope you guys enjoyed that sick beat presented to you by the ESL Play.ESL game. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool website. You guys should check it out if you like to play any games competitively. But yeah, we're back here. About to jump into game number 3 between DemiGod and Cydonia at week 3 of King of the Hill. And DemiGod's up 2-0.
I mean, he can't be feeling much better than this. Now, he does have to actually win with his Paladin. He chose not to self-ban Paladin from his lineup and instead chose to ban his own Druid.
Yeah.
In the face of Cydonia's Rogue, you know, I said it didn't really make much sense, but when I looked at the lineup a little bit more, I can actually see the Druid ban here. But Paladin, I think, is going to be fairly weak versus Rogue too, unless it happens to be aggro Paladin.
Yeah.
So curious to see what he's actually come up with. If Ivory Knight is sort of where he's directed, that card is one of the ones I definitely think is a little bit weaker from the first wing. or just with the class cards in general.
It's hard
personally.
to quantify. It's hard to quantify.
That's a card you're really going to have to tinker with a bit and see if you can afford to play a 6-mana 4/4.
Yeah. But we saw the commercial for the Play.ESL gaming, and of course I mentioned for you guys to check it out. And what you should check it out specifically for, at least if you're a big fan of playing some Hearthstone, is the King of the Hill Open. Every week we invite one player, the winner of the previous week's Open, to compete in King of the Hill. DemiGod's this week. He won the Open for last week. And you guys have a chance too. You can go to esl.gg/KOTHHS and sign up for the Open there. There's actually a bunch of people. There's a bunch of Open grinders in NA that play in it. It's a really great way to get tournament experience, especially with Swiss, because Swiss is starting to get more popular. Not many Open tournaments run Swiss, and so it's a really cool thing.
It's definitely rare to find.
Yeah, rare to find. And Admiral and I, we played a 2-man Swiss tournament earlier.
Yeah.
He won, and so he got automatically placed into the top 1, and then he won the tournament because it was a default.
That's exactly how it went down.
It won't be that easy, though, for you if you sign up.
It won't. There'll be a lot more players in it. But yeah, I really encourage everyone who's looking to get into the competitive scene to really play the Open events. Might even win some cash, too. I mean, $500 every single week you win one of these. It's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a lot of money over the course of 8 weeks if you manage to keep the king status.
Game number 3. Guess what? It's here right now.
Paladin, new card.
Oh my goodness, TJ. He's actually playing Ivory Knight. I'm looking forward to see how this works. I'm a little bit worried for him. I'm not going to lie, but I'm really hoping it just works.
He got the matchup that he wanted. I'm pretty sure this deck just destroys Zoo. You have Stabilization, you have Doomsayers, you have Equalities, you have Wild Pyromancers.
It definitely feels like a pretty good matchup. Looks like we're having a bit of an issue with the spectator client.
No.
Oh, there are the cards. Why did they show? Oh my gosh.
They always wait. It's Murlocs.
Wow. This is...
Look at that. And look at that hand. Ignore the 10-drop. Look at the rest.
I don't know if this is a good matchup or not.
I think it is.
I think when you have a 10 cost, anything can happen in your hand. I'm not sure I want to say it's favorable.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, if you get to turn 10, you've already won. Okay.
Right, so why do we need anything can happen?
Doomsayer buys you a turn. Okay, True Server Champion is fantastic. Bluegill Warrior, pretty good.
It's 2-mana 2 damage. It's not. It's honestly, this is one of the matchups where it's at its best.
Yeah.
Just 2-mana 2 damage.
All right, so we're definitely going to have to see, but
I'm concerned with like abusive Sergeant.
yeah.
Like that's a hard one to deal with for this deck.
And I'm also concerned with the mid game. You know, I'm concerned with what happens if DemiGod never finds a quality.
Or if he just gasses out. Blue Order's a great pickup.
I don't know.
See a Peddler. I mean, maybe this is going to spell Bluegill Warrior instead, but
I don't know if Doomsayer's getting any better. And if Loot Hoarder's so much better on an empty board than it is on a full board.
I think Doomsayer gets a lot better if the Loot Hoarder succeeds. That's a really interesting thought to have here. So say he plays Loot Hoarder lives. He gets to trade that over the Dark Peddler, or say maybe a better minion if Cydonia chooses to play it. He's Bluegill Warrior for that one. Then you're rolling into the 3-drop. You're going to see Dark Shard Councilman, you're going to see Imp Gang Boss. Those are going to be kind of the 2 major ones. If you Doomsayer on that drop, it's really hard for Cydonia to answer that because you have checked every single minion in a row. So there's a chance that Doomsayer gets better here, but is DemiGod willing to take a risk like that?
I suppose the argument is that you give your opponent one more turn or possibly one more tap to maybe find a power overwhelming. But yeah, I definitely like your point there. It's not something that I thought about. And going by the Book of Zoo, normal Zoo plays, yeah, I like this play. You swayed
I like
me.
it too. It honestly, it feels stronger.
You convinced me.
And Cydonia, he's going to end up taking what I'm guessing he didn't necessarily anticipate to be doing turn 2, which is Possessed Villager and Abusive Sergeant. This will be a push for damage. There's no reason for him to trade here.
Yeah.
But this is a situation I think that DemiGod was looking for. See, now the Doomsayer, I still think it looks fine here. Like, you just trade him for the Loot Hoarder into the 2-2. Your opponent's got 3 points of damage on the board. You get to play Doomsayer. You deny a big 3-drop. And you can follow up with Bluegill Warrior and Hero Power or with True Silver Champion.
Yeah, and your opponent uses a Power Overwhelming to clear off. Boom, all of a sudden they're not playing a 3-drop.
Yeah, I think,
they
honestly...
have to have a 2-drop to follow it up, and that's a Power Overwhelming gone.
I feel like DemiGod would prefer to see Power Overwhelming in this spot, actually.
Sure, yeah.
They'd buy him extra health, it would answer the front half of the Possessed Villager, or it would answer the Abusive Sergeant. Instead, Cydonia, he's going to relegate himself to life tap, push 3, and pass. And now DemiGod, I think, pretty likely to pull ahead.
Oh, yeah. Picks up an equality, just needs an activator, and Ivory Knight is actually a decent card to pick up an activator as well. Well, you can also gain some health. And
I'm curious if he's True Silvering or if he's Bluegill Warrioring here.
I think you Bluegill Warrior hero power, and you even push face with that Bluegill Warrior.
Yeah, I don't mind actually going face with it. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is like Defender Vargas trade over.
Yeah,
Defender Vargas looking really weak on that board.
Yeah, if you Defender Vargas a 1/1 on 4, I mean, you trade in, and that gives you a Choose Over Champion next turn. You clear the board, and then you have a free turn for Ivory Knight.
I do think I'd prefer pushing face to the Bluegill Warrior, and I do think I prefer that line overall, because the True Silver Champion can get Cydonia in some spots where he wouldn't necessarily play a minion that could die to True Silver Champion if he knows that it's there. It's a lot harder to play Darkshire Councilman if your opponent's got a 1/1 and a True Silver Champion on board than if they don't. And so it's a possibility that Cydonia maybe uses Darkshire Councilman in the spot where maybe before he would have life tapped and played a 2-drop or something.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay, just equip and pass.
Forget it. Okay, so I don't mind this either, because if your opponent is kind of thrown off on the order that they play cards in, just because you have a True Silver Champion out, that in effect buys you more time.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of like the other play better, but I understand why he decided to go with this one. Bluegill Warrior might be his only option with equality as well. I don't know.
So many
Not really a big deal.
Also just the damage. I mean, like, does he really care about pushing damage here? Does he really want the development from hero power? Like, a lot of stuff, I don't know. I don't mind the True Silver Champion now that I'm kind of thinking about it.
Get it out! Get it out!
Cydonia goes to Darkshire Councilman, even despite that it's there. That's an interesting draw. Well, it's definitely better to have not played the Bluegill Warrior for your draw Murloc War Leader, I think. But this is a tough spot.
So, I mean, he's got to kill that Darkshire Councilman. It's priority number 1. So that Bluegill Warrior and that True Silver Champion, I think, are both going into the Darkshire Councilman. And then it's just a matter of, do you play War Leader or do you hero power?
I think you're fine playing the War Leader.
But then you kind of feel like you're wasting value from the Bluegill Warrior. I don't know. Then you're like kind of
need the value.
Then you're like enticed to trade. Like,
I'm curious if he needs the value. That's where my mind is. I mean, he's rolling into Ivory Knight and he has anything can happen in hand. To me, anytime you get to play Murlocs is value right now.
Yeah. Yep. So it doesn't get baited by the potential value there. Trading into a 1/1 with the buff Bluegill.
While the Possessed Villagers.
I would have just to be cute. I'd be like, deal with that.
You're cute anyway, TJ.
Oh, thank you. I don't have to make cute plays.
Not in my book.
That's why I'm such a great Hearthstone player. That's why my name is Azumo Cutie, to convince myself every day. TJ, you don't need to make cute plays.
TJ's like,
You're already a QT.
You're cute, I know it. Cydonia has just had rough spots over and over again. Even against the Murloc Paladin deck.
Yeah.
We're going to see Knife Jugglers here. Well, that's a good first one. If that first one didn't hit face, you know, when you're down 0-2 in the series, you're tempted to get that, oh, not this sort of style, but lands all 3 juggles. Things looking a bit up for him here. DemiGod really needs Wild Pyromancer or Consecration here. And so it's Ivory Knight for sure.
Let's see what he can find.
Those are not any of those cards.
Ooh. I mean, at least Lay on Hands heals him for 8.
That's
Solemn Vigil, though, might be the best. It's a heal for 5, and it's also a little bit more flexible than Lay on Hands. Because you can make a few trades, cheapen it, and find your cards faster than you would if you played Lay on Hands.
It's really interesting, I think, for the contrast in picks here, because Lay on Hands, in effect, will cost you 8 mana to heal for 16. Because you're getting 8 now, and you're getting 8 later.
Yeah.
So does he need the extra life to find the right spot? Like, can he afford to let these Knife Jugglers live and have this happen? Because even if he goes with Solemn Vigil next turn, he still won't have the mana to use equality and the same thing. And so I think DemiGod's focused on the bigger picture here, which is I might have time to cast Lay on Hands and not die the following turn.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be his best bet at this point, because the double Knife Juggler and the Voidwalker really put him in a bad spot this turn.
He does have some ways to sort of buy time. You know, the board's full with weak stuff, so he can use Humility in a way that sort of just reduces damage on the board while keeping it weak.
Which I think is fine. I'm curious if Cydonia, when he sees the heal for 8, if Lay on Hands is on his radar or Tyrion's on his radar more. Or maybe even
Well,
Ragnar's
it's only
Lightlord.
spells.
It's only spells?
Yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, I had
So you know
that card's
it's Lay
even
on
worse than I
Hands.
thought it was.
Yeah. So you know that it's Lay on Hands. So a lot of people were questioning it
I need a
because
deep
there's
card
so
before I
many
dismiss that.
Paladin secrets that the likelihood that you get multiple secrets is actually really high. I'm pretty sure I've never not seen a secret in my Ivory Knight testing.
I'm pretty convinced that card is not very strong.
I mean, don't be so sure, man.
I thought you could get Tyrion off that.
No.
And when I thought you could get Tyrion, mind you, I was questioning how good it was. Now that I know you can't get Tyrion,
You can get Hammer of Wrath, though.
oh, big pickup.
Imagine this card. It's a 10 mana 4/4. Battle Cry, deal 3 damage, and draw a card.
And gain 4 life.
And you can use it over 2 turns and split the mana cost, but only in 6 mana and then
This
4
card's getting
mana.
really confusing.
Yeah.
See, if they just made like a 19 cost Paladin card, Ivory Knight might be good. Like just a 19 cost spell. And it doesn't have any text on it. It's just a spell.
What about a card that's just super flexible? Let's say it just uses up all the mana that you have left, and it heals you for
I don't know.
like some kind of static amount that's
2
based off
points
how
of
much mana
mana
you
or
spend.
something.
Around that, yeah.
Yeah. Sea Giant gets picked up for Cydonia. Looking good for him. DemiGod does have an immediate check in hand with Humility.
But
So many
Cydonia knows that
possibilities.
he picked Lay on Hands. I think. I don't think there's any other 8-mana Paladin cards.
shield for
8-mana
spells,
Paladin
rather.
spells.
Yeah. Whoa, risky Defender of Argus at the start here. I mean, I guess he doesn't really have a way to fight around that. The Acolyte's going to threaten card draw regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you play Sea Giant, you're playing right into equality something, but you don't play it. When are you going to play it if he does equality
Look,
something?
Cydonia has not seen a Consecration for like 3 turns this point. DemiGod does not have a Consecration. And so equality becomes much worse when you're in this position.
Whoa. Dodging bullets.
Interesting he trades the Flame Imp over. Instead
Interesting,
of
he
trading the
didn't
Possessed
trade
Villager.
the Imp King boss in before getting the 2 juggles that could have given him 2 extra draws if he was going to make that trade anyway.
This was not well thought out sequencing from Cydonia here,
No.
I don't think.
Oh, Nelly.
baby. Look at DemiGod.
Call a doctor.
Glad we don't have a mic on because you're not allowed to say what DemiGod just said. That's for sure. Wild Pyromancer equality is going to wipe this board out.
Yeah.
And Cydonia is going to be left with a 1-1. That Imp King boss, because the board is full, will not spawn.
It's too bad that wasn't a solid vigil. No, I'm kidding. kidding. Lay on Hands is going to be a sick draw.
Leroy gets picked up. Gormok can't be activated this turn.
I'm just going to go out and say it. I don't like Gormok in the meta right now.
No, I don't think it's very good either.
I really don't.
I think it's way weak.
With Shamans running Lightning Storm, with Druids being so popular, with Swipe, with so many
Is it
clears.
really better than Dark Iron Dwarf? You don't have Haunted Creeper or Nerubian Egg anymore. It's hard to stick stuff to the board.
Yeah. Well, you're going to
Big
see a Lay on
heal.
Hands here.
Big
But-
heal. Picks up a Consecration as well. This game may have just turned all DemiGod.
All DemiGod, all day.
5, 7, not quite. 14 damage total for Cydonia. It's honestly getting pretty close.
Yeah, but the thing is, look at this turn next turn from DemiGod.
Look at this turn from Cydonia here. I mean, this is... Cormac's connecting here.
Yeah, but DemiGod can clear the board, Solemn Vigil, and True Silver Champion the face next turn. Or the 1/1 that comes out from the Imp King boss.
I think I'd like to see Cydonia play Direwolf Alpha and Cormac here.
More selling.
Oh, Shifter Xeris is not bad.
Shifter Xeris can be anything. It can even turn back into a Shifter Xeris. Did you know that?
Did it really?
It can.
I didn't know that.
It's actually ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
Well, I think his turn is pretty settled with that Equality Consecrate. At 11, I don't think you can afford to just tank the Cormac and consider otherwise.
Yeah. Quality Consecrate, Solemn Vigil would be free at that stage.
Yeah, he needs to evaluate whether or not using the Bluegill Warrior is actually better than True Silver as well, since he has Anyfin can happen online.
I think you just want to heal anything, though, because anything can happen at this stage. I think it's unplayable until you're killing your opponent.
It definitely could be the case, so we're just taking such a massive, overwhelming board advantage.
Yeah, and whether or not you're... So playing the Bluegill only makes your combo 8 damage or 2 trades in. And I think your point at this point is just a war of attrition. And maybe trying to sneak it in at the very last second, so...
There's True Silver Champion. Well, if he's going to Quality Consecrate, this is the wrong order. So he attacks now.
Consecrate and Bluegill. Okay.
I like that, though. That's actually really good.
No?
Yeah, that's the wrong order. DemiGod took an extra point of damage here. He could have Equality Consecrated and then attacked the 1/1 imp. But he's getting off the card draw, which is definitely the major goal.
What? I'm trying to think, is there any reason why that's better? You get the same amount of minions die for Solemn Vigil, and it costs 0 anyway regardless.
That Defender of Argus could be really important. Councilman Direwolf, Defender of Argus, with a Leroy in hand? You better not life tap Cydonia. That's a good turn.
Yeah, DemiGod realizes his mistake, too.
Oh my gosh. I do. Something happened this game where I think Cydonia is really unfamiliar with the matchup, and as a result is not playing to his major win condition right now, which is the Leroy Jenkins. And DemiGod, kind of like as I mentioned, he's a really instinct field player. When he starts to think about a lot of different things at once, he almost, it's like he overwhelms himself with that, because he'll just start thinking about too many things.
Yeah, but Cydonia picks up a 1-drop.
Which is a Jhin draw. I mean, if Cydonia didn't draw a 1-drop here, this turn was way weaker.
Yeah.
And so does get rewarded for it eventually. And now DemiGod, I mean, that one turn put him in a rough spot. If he had that Bluegill Warrior in the bin, this would be a turn he could answer.
All right, so now what do we do?
Hope.
Yeah. All right, so I don't think there's a way for him to survive here.
I don't think so either.
I'm trying to look. No, he's dead. What can he do that's going to be the best for his turn? So
Humility is definitely one of the starts.
Yeah, so Bluegill plus Murloc War Leader has to be an option.
I wonder if Wild Pyromancer ever is crossing his mind. Like maybe he like Wild Pyromancer, Blood Mage, Humility, and draws something big. I don't know. We don't know what's in his list, so that's a hard one.
There's nothing that you're going to be able to play for 5 mana that's going to make any difference. Even if you draw Consecrate, it's not clearing the board. You can clear the board by attacking into Darkshire Councilman. Maybe that's your out there, but from his perspective, he doesn't know that he's dead next turn. So he's just going to go Murloc War Leader, Bluegill, Humility, clean off the Darkshire Councilman, and then just play stuff.
Yeah,
and
that's going to do it. Cydonia going to take game number 3 with Warlock here. Look at that. All he needed to do was get stuff on board to deal some damage and kill him with Leroy.
Yeah.
Don't like the life tap, Cydonia. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Yeah.
With a Soulfire in the build, though, I can definitely see the life tap. You have the extra burst damage. Makes sense to dig. So,
maybe this matchup's bad.
Well, I think that DemiGod fell into some spots where he definitely didn't make the most use out of what he had. I definitely think that. I'm thinking on turn 4, we chose to play True Silver instead of using the Bluegill Hero Power. I'm thinking about post Ivory Knight, where he ended up clearing a little bit improperly with the True Silver Champion, Equality Consecrate. He could have saved an extra life there, which that inconsequential, but it could have been there anyway. Just a lot of little things where you have to be super experienced with this kind of deck and make sure to get every single checkbox right to find your major win conditions. That's one of the reasons why I typically think players should be avoiding decks like this.
Yeah. Been interesting. Had the option to ban it away from himself, but I know DemiGod has been a fan of Control Paladin for a very long time. And so maybe trying to get some practice in with it in a tournament setting. Maybe think it's just really strong, but
I haven't checked to see if, or spoken with him to see if he submitted that for prelims.
There were a lot of Paladins submitted for prelims.
If he submitted that for prelims, it would make perfect sense why he's playing it here. If we just at this point, you need every bit of practice you can get to be in good form for that event.
Yeah, but we'll have to see if there's going to be any new cards. Of course, if you're tuning in, first week of Karazhan has been allowed for deck submission this week. So Ivory Knight, Pantry Spider,
I always love how you name that one first.
Two best ones.
Priest of the Feast.
Priest of the Feast.
Oskaka brought Priest, by the way.
Cloaked Huntress.
That's an interesting card. That's a topic I won't talk about later because that's one I could talk about for forever.
Yeah.
It feels like.
But, you know, it's 2-1 right now, and we're going to move into game number 4 in just a few moments. But before we do that, we are going to have to go to a quick break. So when we come back, guys, more King of the Hill action. Don't go anywhere.
It's the desire for greatness that drives us. It demands persistence. An existence dedicated to a single goal. The willingness to sacrifice what you have for what you will become.
Get your team apparel now at shop.eslgaming.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to ESL's King of the Hill. Once again, I'm TJ, joined by Nathan. That's Admirable Zamora. And we're about to jump into game number 4 of Cydonia versus DemiGod, the first match of the day. The invited players Cydonia versus the open winner DemiGod. And at the moment, DemiGod's got a little bit of an edge.
Yep, 2-1 up in the series right now. And Paladin being that Murloc Paladin, you know, looking at the way he started out 2-0, I would have gone, DemiGod's got the edge here. I'm telling you right now, I am terrified for DemiGod with that Murloc Paladin deck. I do not think it's going to get the job done, and I think Cydonia is going to win the series on the back of that deck.
We'll see. We shall see. The thing about Conquest is you got to win with all your decks.
Yep.
All of them. All 4, except the one that you banned.
Including Murloc Paladin.
Including Murloc Paladin. And you know what? Paladin was the highest performing deck at prelims just EU prelims, just 2 days ago. But I think it was a much different environment. This is only 3 players. That was 163 players. There was a lot more control in that lineup. You had to win a lot more matches in a row.
I'd say Europe tends to have more control in general.
Yeah. So the different situation. And I don't know. The deck has yet to be proven, especially with Ivory Knight, which is a card that has only been out for a week, less than a week. Can't have been through that much testing.
Oh, yeah, there also wasn't Karazhan available at.
There was not Karazhan available. Now, the deck only has changed a few cards, but we'll see.
Nevertheless.
Shaman versus Shaman, and Cydonia has not got the best of hands.
No, he does not. Lava Burst, pretty miserable in this matchup. Thing from Below, that's definitely actually a pretty good one in this matchup, even though you don't want it this early. And Argent Horse Rider and Tuskar Totemic are going to struggle early on if your opponent has a lot of gas. And DemiGod has got a lot of early game stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, Totem up on turn 2 is definitely not what you want to do if you're an aggressive Shaman.
Too. DemiGod probably would have played the Abusive Sergeant here, but now that he picks up the Argent Squire, it's not even close to an option.
Yeah. Cydonia can probably guess that there is another 1-drop in some form or another in DemiGod's hand, because a lot of times that's when you'd coin out a Totem Golem. You probably do it anyway, but most of the time there is that 1-drop. So now Cydonia's got to fight back from a board where he's already so far behind. So not sure how he's going to do it, especially since DemiGod's got some of the best follow-up on a good opening hand that an aggro shaman could have. He needs to do something good here.
The 1/1's not horrible. I think it's definitely better than the 0/2s, but
Yeah.
not horrible.
All right, so now the options are Tuskar Totemic or Argent Horse Rider, or something fancy with the 1-drops. But I definitely just like the simplest play. Argent Horse Rider onto 3/2. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
I think you keep the Divine Shield, honestly.
Don't get too fancy. Do you?
Don't worry, loves.
I'm thinking so. And the reason I think so is because the Divine Shield actually represents a really difficult barrier for Cydonia to get through, I think. Where a 3-health Totem Golem, is it that much different than a 4-health Totem Golem? Yeah, yes, of course, because Rockbiter and Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
But the Divine Shield, I think, represents a lot more than 1 health. And so I guess the question is a 4-health Totem Golem better? Because it stays at a range of those.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it is, especially when you have Rockbiter and Abuse Sergeant in your hand.
Yeah.
I feel like the Divine Shield's way better.
All right. So... there we go. Okay. I was going to say we need to get a little bit of mouse movement going on, but we got it. Now we can see what Cydonia can do. Yikes.
This is tough. I don't know if he's winning this game.
Totem just barfing out the hand seems like the best option. But how he barfs
Divine
is...
Shield definitely looked a lot better here. Oh, Sir Finley Myrtleton is such a good draw for DemiGod right now. This is brutes.
We'll see. I mean, Cydonia does have a 4-mana thing from below. That next turn will be a 3-mana thing from below that he can combo with Totem Golem. And Flametongue Totem is... yeah, it's great. You think like, Flametongue Totem's not that great on this board. No, it's a Flametongue really Totem!
Good.
It's got 3 health!
Yeah, this is trade Finley.
That Flametongue Totem's going to be there forever!
The Tunnel Trog is the same stats as Finley, except the Tunnel Trog, you kind of want to combo it with an Overload spell at this point, or just an Overload card, rather. So it's way better when you can do that. And the Finley, this is so favorable for DemiGod.
I actually like the Rockbiter.
Really?
Yeah. Push 4 damage. Protect your 4-1.
I like the Finley. Wow. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I mean, this is what we saw him do in game number 2 as well, which is favor the damage push.
Yeah. I think keeping alive as many minions as possible is actually really relevant.
Well, that's a good reason to not Rockbiter, is that card right there.
Well, I mean, whether you Rockbite it or not, your Argent Horse Rider would still be able to trade in next turn. And then you'll have your Finley trade in the next turn.
The problem is you have the Finley on the board right now. That's what I'm seeing. I think Finley on board is a lot stronger that way.
Yeah, but maybe
That's
next
close.
turn you can fit in a Totem up. I don't know. I feel like this play plays around a lot more plays where the other one's only better against Feral Spirits. Ding from below.
Well, that might change the Finley. That card's looking really good right now, that's for sure. Yeah, Cydonia just kind of had to play to what his hand presented him. He didn't really have too much to do. So it's obviously super standard for him, where for DemiGod, it's kind of like a puzzle of how do I eventually take this?
Yeah, I don't know. That draw from Cydonia, though, was clutch. So he's going to be overloaded for 2 next turn.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, he's going to be overloaded for 3, so he's only going to have 3 mana.
It's just enough to play Thing from below.
Just enough to play Thing from below. Or just enough to play Lava Burst if DemiGod plays Thing from below.
Which I'm going to guess he's playing Thing from below here. I don't really see another option.
Yeah.
Tunnel Trog and Finley just look... This is one of the reasons I wanted to play the Finley, is Finley just... Your opponent has stuff on board, doesn't look very good. When they have nothing on board, it looks incredible. Is that a Doomhammer? Ooh.
Might change things
Honestly,
in the next
Cydonia is about
turn.
to pull ahead. Like, yeah, I mean, now this is like a really, really great sequence for Cydonia. His Lava Burst on the Thing from below gets to take over the board with a 3-2 Totem Golem versus a Flametongue Totem. DemiGod has to have something to respond to that, and then he's got Doomhammer to follow up.
Yeah. Even though his opening hand was bad, his past 3 draws have been on point.
Cydonia's opening hand is really bad, too. I mean, the fact that he's in this game is already something special.
Yeah.
I'm curious if the use of Sergeant on the Flametongue is right. I mean, either way, the Flametongue Totem's gone next turn. So should you just use the Abusive Sergeant to trade in now?
It's probably going to be better.
Hello, old friend. Let's meet for tea after the match, shall we?
All right, Finley, you got it. I'll grab some tea.
You know what, Finley, I don't even like you.
Go home, Finley. Goes with Shapeshift over Fire Blast. So kind of playing more towards the Doomhammer draw than the immediate value.
It's kind of interesting because both can be used for trades. Shapeshift requires that you can get through a taunt, and it also means you take damage. But if there's nothing to trade into, then Fire Blast, then Shapeshift gains you health where Fire Blast does it. And then there's the dynamic of Doomhammer. When presented with the choice of Fire Blast and Shapeshift, it's pretty interesting, actually, how it all plays out.
I'm gonna go with the trade now. I do like it.
Trade and Barf Hand.
Well, this is it's pretty weak to what Cydonia happens to have. You know, in this situation, I look at Cydonia's hand and wonder, does it even have to be Doomhammer here? Wow.
Totem Golem, Totem Up, Thing from Below.
It's pretty good.
And then you follow that up with Doomhammer plus anything. And you're looking at a way, and you're looking at a pretty clean board state. Cydonia might have done it.
Well, it's going to give DemiGod one final draw to make this happen. He took the Shapeshift over the Fire Blast. He chose to wait on the Finley. Is it just destiny to draw that Doomhammer? Nope.
Well,
still not bad, though.
yeah. But pretty bad at the same time.
I mean, it's definitely one of the worst draws. But when your opponent plays Thing from Below and you happen to be able to use your Abusive Sergeant and your Lightning Bolt to kill it,
Yeah.
it feels decent. You look at that and you go, okay, this could have been worse. Like, he could have drawn... Tunnel Trog here. That would have been awful.
That would have been very awful.
Wow, this is really interesting. He's actually going to use his face to clear. This is actually really smart from DemiGod. So DemiGod gets to restrict to just Totem Golem, pushes 4 damage, and it cost himself 5 life to do it.
Health is his most plentiful resource.
Right. That's a really good spot from DemiGod. I honestly just wasn't even paying attention to that.
Yeah.
That was a way better play.
All right, well, Cydonia's got the big stuff.
I personally wanted to put the hammer down,
Hammer time.
just like Captain America wants Thor to.
Wait, Adam. Stop. Hammer time.
He's going with the flame faceless time.
The light protects.
That doesn't have as much of a ring to it.
And thus is a worse play. This is probably better.
Holy moly. Is this deck like 21 drops?
That's what it looks like so far.
His past 6 draws have been 1 drops, right? He drew Finley, Tunnel Trog, Abusive Sergeant, Rockbiter Weapon, Lightning Bolt, Art Esquire.
The Rockbiter
Abusive
was used
Sergeant.
early.
Yeah, but that was like the first one. And then he drew Tunnel Trog, then he drew Finley, then he drew Abusive Sergeant, then he drew Art Esquire, then he drew Lightning Bolt, now he drew Abusive Sergeant.
You're right, actually.
He hasn't had a single drop above 1 mana.
And as a result, he's definitely behind.
Yeah. Yeah, and finally he goes ahead and kills that healing totem. It's punished him a little bit up until now, but Cydonia is home free.
Yeah, this
He
is
cleans the board.
well, he's cleaning some of the board. He's cleaning enough of the board.
He's cleaning the two ones, but that Flame Wreath Faceless shall be pointed elsewhere.
That's the right spot for it. That is
X
a
gonna give it to you.
That's
Where in this equation, X equals Flame Wreath Faceless.
I always knew I liked that. Now, honestly, I do. Now that you pointed out, DemiGod's draws have been really poor. But I think he would have been in a better situation if he played Finley instead of using the Rockbiter.
Yeah.
He would have been able to trade up over and over again. He would have had the Finley active earlier. It would have been a much more potential snowbally situation.
Could have been. Could have been.
I think that's what the major effect of this game has been, honestly.
Holds on to the lava burst. And was that a flame rock biter weapon that I saw? It was, and that's going to be it.
Yeah, Cydonia. Getting it done with that Doomhammer drop. Played his opening really well. Kind of like the complete opposite. DemiGod had a great opening, really poor pan out. Cydonia had a really poor opening, pretty good pan out.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to tie it up 2-2 for both of these players. And now we get into the meat of the entree. We're down to 2 decks apiece, and it's Paladin and Shaman for DemiGod, and Druid and Warrior for Cydonia.
Yeah, this is, I'm terrified for DemiGod. I do not see this Paladin getting the job done. I really don't. Like, it can't be a good matchup versus the Dragon Warrior. I just literally don't see that.
It's probably pretty good against Druid, to be fair.
I don't think it's very good versus Druid either.
Druid doesn't have win conditions that have an aggressive plan where they reload quickly. So they have to get a great start. And Druid, if it gets a great start against anything, it's going to win.
I'm seeing it a lot differently. I think the Druid has the staying power because of Nourish. And I think that versus the Warrior is probably his better matchup with the Paladin. Yeah. Because he's got Outlaw Peacekeeper and Humility to answer tempo, just kind of on-curve stuff. Yeah. Versus Druid used to play that way. It doesn't play that way anymore. And so that's really my concern there is Nourish providing too much value.
Sure, yeah. Could possibly be a thing here. And, you know, the greedier the Druid deck, probably the better it's going to be. There's only so many Eldar Peacekeepers that you can get through Ancients of War, Cenarius, Onyxias, things like that. So definitely going to have to see. Before we jump into Game 5, we are going to have to go to a quick break. Don't go anywhere, guys. Be right back.
He's going to get the one kill in that bomb coming onto the side. FNX has to stay up. No! He gets the triple FNX! Oh my god, what a way to win that round! They don't have a smoke, so this orb is still...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ESL 1 Cologne.
It's the desire for greatness that drives us. It demands persistence. An existence dedicated to a single goal. The willingness to sacrifice what you have for what you will become.
Get your team apparel now at shop.eslgaming.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to ESL's King of the Hill. About getting close to being done with our first series today. It's DemiGod versus Cydonia. We're all tied up 2-2. And looking at the remaining decks, Cydonia being able to claw his way back from an 0-2 deficit is really going to work out for him as this match goes on, I think.
Yeah, the Paladin deck from DemiGod has chosen to ban out his own Druid instead of this Paladin. Paladin is a Murloc Paladin deck. And I don't know if that's getting the job done. I mean, when was the last time you saw Murloc Paladin really put up a good performance? We're talking pre...
George C. qualified with it last week at EU Prelims, but...
Sure, but I'm talking...
One player.
Yeah. Like, anomalies happen. I've also seen people do well with, I don't know, Aggro Druid, Beast Druid. You know, I mean, like, decks that just are not very common. And if you get them in the right situation, you get the right matchups, yes, they end up thriving. But we're talking a 3-player bracket here. I think you could very accurately predict what you're going to play against in this event. That Murloc Paladin, I don't think is getting the job done here. I think it's going to struggle, and with Cydonia having Druid and Warrior left, and it's a Dragon Warrior, I'm worried. I'm worried for him.
It's going to be tough. But he does have a shot. You know, that deck can pull wins out. If you get the right removal draw, I don't know. It also depends on how greedy Cydonia's Druid deck is.
Yeah.
Whether it's built to beat control, whether it's built to beat the aggressive decks. Savage Order might be a big deal. Mulch isn't really going to find many big targets.
Sure.
So it's things like that, depending on how the deck's built too, could influence the matchups. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Paladin you look at their tools and you're like, oh my god, they're so strong. But then you look at their gameplay and you're like, oh my gosh, they're so weak.
The other thing to consider about Paladin, as we roll into game number 5 here, Paladin versus Druid, Paladin for DemiGod, of course, is that Paladin has to be played picture perfectly.
Yeah.
If you give up tools at the wrong time, you make a misstep, you don't build the board tension right, you can get punished for it. Well, we saw DemiGod have everything versus Cydonia's Zulok.
Yeah.
He had both equality clears. He gained 8 off of the Ivory Knight with a Lay on Hands. He got to cast Lay on Hands and be at a relatively safe position afterwards, and just the reload from Cydonia over and over again killed him.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And is it a problem with DemiGod sequencing, or is it a problem with the deck? That's a hard one to identify. We've only seen DemiGod play one game with it so far.
Yeah. Whereas Druid, you can close your hands. Close your hands.
Just close your hands.
Close your hands.
Use your eyes to click buttons.
Use your eyes to close your eyes.
Just smashing his head on the keyboard.
Oh my god. And you can still find wins. That was my point. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Wild Growth is definitely the most important card in this matchup, I'd say. Cydonia is the aggressor, but it's a very different kind of aggressor where he just wants to power out threats over and over again, reload with Nourish, and keep the pain train coming. Where DemiGod's trying to offset that. So Cydonia having the Wild Growth keeps DemiGod a step behind almost every single time.
Yep.
And this is an example of how DemiGod can come back from that. Cydonia now no longer has Violet Teacher available to him. If he ends up playing Violet, well, he might now because he drew Innervate. But had he not drawn this Innervate and he plays Violet Teacher, DemiGod gets 2 draws guaranteed off the Acolyte. That's a situation where you can fall behind. Suddenly, Cydonia is looking at a spot where Violet Teacher, Innervate, Wrath looks pretty good. DemiGod, the only clear available is exactly Wild Pyromancer quality. Last time Cydonia was in a spot like this, he chose to risk the Core Crown Elite by attacking face with it instead of trading and forcing DemiGod to have the right card. In this situation, DemiGod doesn't have the right cards, and Cydonia can follow up with Power of the Wild. This game, unless DemiGod just draws perfectly, is going to be lights out.
Followed up with Power of the Wild and then reload with Nourish. Are you kidding me?
A very average Druid hand. Unbelievable.
Yeah, every Druid has this hand. Except me when I'm playing it. Yeah.
I don't mind the Consecrate here, but if Cydonia sees a Consecrate, his line will likely deviate from Nourish into... I'm sorry, likely deviate from Power Wild into Nourish instead. Yeah. So there's a lot on DemiGod's plate to get this done.
Yeah. So,
is that a Raven Idol? Oh my goodness. Cydonia is drawing perfect right now. I actually can't think of a better draw than Raven Idol right now.
Yeah, and what if he gets Soul of the Forest from Raven Idol?
Oh, don't even go there, TJ. I wasn't even going to talk about that. Now you put that at Mojo out in the world, he's going to get Soul of the Forest. Doesn't.
No. But picks up Starfire and Mark of Yasharaj.
Somehow pronounced Yasharaj.
Yasharaj.
That's actually correct. It's not Yashar.
Yeah, well, there's a J on the end.
It's a J silent.
Char
Haven't
with
you
a
ever
silent J.
watched Force and Stream Knife Juggler?
Yeah, but the J turns into a Y.
Shar.
The J turns to a Y. It'd be Yashari then. unless he
Yashari.
calls it a knife uggler. That's a silent J.
Which he does. Duh.
Yeah. Did you see my knife uggler play? It was ick. Silent S.
Maybe a way to climb back into this.
Well, he's going to have to consecrate in the next turn like Murloc War Leader into Bluegill.
Your board clears take multiple turns to set up. They're much weaker.
Yes.
This is 100% Nourish.
For mana.
I am ready to learn.
Just mulches on 1/1 here. Gotta make those tokens.
All right, let's see what he picks up. There's Yogg-Saron, Emperor Thor's, and some big threats picked up. So.
Druid always finds a way to troll the spectator. You know that?
Yeah.
The glowing halo wreath. Both Nourish options. Just go ahead and let these sink in for a bit.
Yeah.
So Cydonia, fairly weak turn despite the Nourish, but Druid doesn't typically mind that. If Druid is ahead, it can have weak turns and to have even stronger turns later on.
Yeah.
And so that's where this is headed right now. Emperor Thorson looks really good.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's worth.
He's considering the draws from the Azure Drake and what they mean, but they don't mean as much as this. Honestly, DemiGod, you may see second consecration here.
Yeah. Just putting out a must-kill threat is just a big deal.
Well, True Silver.
I don't know. Maybe Aldor plus Consecrate's still the... Okay.
Honestly, it's not. Consecrate's still not that bad. The problem is it's going to make his equality draws so much worse if he chooses to consecrate.
Yeah.
So he's keeping in mind his future draws here. He's also got the Ivor Knight too, so it just makes more sense, I think, to use the True Silver. It's a pretty solid draw here. One of the best in his deck at that point.
All right, so we'll see if DemiGod can stabilize enough. I mean, he's got the healing to do it.
He's looking for a swipe here, I think.
Can still pick one up with Raven Idol.
Swipe would be so good right now. Even if he's got a coin, I don't think he minds.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good. He's got True Silver to kill up the Azure Drake, so your board's going to get cleared regardless.
Wisp of the Old Gods or Nourish. Honestly, I think Nourish is probably better here, unless Cydonia just doesn't have Wisps of the Old Gods in his deck. And even if he does, Nourish might still be better.
Wisps is really vulnerable to Pyromancer plus
Yeah.
anything.
That's my major concern, is that just Wild Pyromancer and then Forbidden Healing suddenly can counter Wisps in a very valuable way. He's actually going to go with Living Roots here. And so he's playing for tempo. This is really interesting to me. So Cydonia feels like he's got enough gas to actually end the game, which I'm not so sure about.
I mean, this Paladin deck has so much healing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that Cydonia may have vastly underestimated the heal potential for DemiGod.
Yeah, and so now he's just going to slam a Rag Light Lord.
This could be as a setup for just Yogg. Maybe he wants to play Yogg a lot earlier. And when your opponent has board presence, Yogg obviously goes up way in value at that point.
But do you really want to use Yogg now? Because even if it, I don't know.
He doesn't have to anymore. It picks up Swipe, so.
Probably just Ancient War Mulch. Really the only thing that stands out.
I guess there's no
there.
Tyrion in this deck sometimes.
I'd say, I don't know.
That's an interesting thought too. Is
where do you
with
fit it
Cydonia-
if you have double Ivory Knights plus the Murloc package?
Plus the Light Lord. That's an interesting thought too. Maybe Cydonia's plan isn't as greedy as I thought it was. Maybe this is actually like way less. What's the word I'm looking for? Way less risky, simply because he understands the threat potential from DemiGod. That's a really good point. I mean, we don't have the deck list on the desk here, so what we're seeing is, or what y'all are seeing is what we're seeing here. And this list obviously has changed a lot.
Yeah, we're not using movie magic to change any of the cards.
That was a good show, by the way. I used to watch it all the time. End of the Coliseum's not too bad.
And the Coliseum's like a brawl that guarantees you get something to stick.
Who's got the hot hand?
You talking about the Flame Juggler?
I was talking about the Onyxia.
No, Flame Jugger literally has hot hands.
I don't think he minds.
He's juggling flames.
really poorly on mine.
I was like, who's got the hot hands? Yeah, he does.
I grew up with a gnomon friend who juggled with knives instead of fire. His aim is just as bad as mine. Oh, that's funny. I grew up with a Draenei brother who always juggled fire. He had bad aim too. We'll never find our long-lost friends. That's the conversation I picture those two having.
The things that go on inside of Admirable's head. Ooh, picks up a Wrath.
That Wrath needs a dig.
Time waits for no one.
He needs to straight up Wrath it, like big Wrath. Whoa, that's weird.
I mean, he's got an Onyxia.
He also has Yogg. I just think it's really interesting to watch Cydonia play so hard to the board. It's like, it's very Firebat-esque, where he will play to the board over and over and over again and just constantly use his really strong cards.
Just slam a strong card every turn and keep your strong cards alive.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
That style is a style I used for a very long time until I got really much more comfortable kind of making reads on what I thought my opponent's hand range was.
Yeah.
Which comes back to bite you a lot too, but for me it's more fun to play.
Yeah.
But watching these styles work over and over again, maybe I just bonk myself in the head and go, keep it simple, stupid.
Let me think.
All right, well, Ivory Knight I think looks like the play here.
Well, I don't think I'm Coliseuming, and I don't think the old Blood Mage Consecrate's getting it done here. I could see Forbidden Healing on the table here, but I think Ivory Knight is definitely better.
Yeah, Ivory Knight, but now he's running out of time to pick an option, so now we're looking at something.
Yeah, so Forbidden Healing is what it's going to be here.
All right.
Yeah, and making a token is just worthless here. Like, literally the extra point of life is probably worth more.
It's just strictly worse than making
it'd be a 14 heal after the humility.
So he values 1 point of heal.
I think the 1 point of health is worth more than 1/1 right now. 1/1's not literally doing nothing right now.
I suppose.
Makes Yogg better. Strictly better to heal for 1 more. Cydonia has, I think, been trying to accumulate the read of whether or not DemiGod has an equality clear. And given that he just took so long to go humility heal, that Cydonia probably just doesn't know anymore. Yeah. So he's like, well, let's just go for Onyxia. This succeeds sometimes.
Yeah.
And now that humility's gone, DemiGod's Enter the Coliseum looks about 15 times worse. I wonder if the humility is actually the wrong play there. Like, maybe make the token and heal for...
I just like Ivory Knight.
I like Ivory Knight too.
Why make it complicated? Just Ivory Knight. Get whatever you want. I mean, Enter the Coliseum is pretty good here, but you're still leaving up an Onyxia.
It's not that good, honestly. It's only pulling 4 or 5. It's only pulling 7 power off the board. That's not a good deal for 6 mana.
That's kind of a lot.
Let me think.
I still like Ivory Knight.
Yeah. But you don't know if your opponent has Savage Roar or not, is the thing.
That's
I guess you can still consecrate.
That's why Enter the Coliseum is better than not using either Consecrate or Enter the Coliseum, is because of Savage Roar.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a consideration that's on DemiGod's mind.
Yeah.
But
all right, well, Fandral, Swipe Face, Power of the Wild. Got to do it.
Behold the rage of the fire.
I don't necessarily think he has to swipe. I think he's got the read.
All right, when is Swipe getting better? 2 1/1s? That's above average for what a Paladin usually has on the board.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's not bad. And this is desperation time. I don't know how DemiGod wins from this point.
He's got a Loot Hoarder and Forbidden Healing and hope that Loot Hoarder gets an equality.
Really bad. But,
Yeah,
I agree with you. I mean, at this point, I think DemiGod played this game really suboptimally. I think that Ivory Knight should have hit the board way sooner. I think humility to peel 4 damage off the board when you're healing yourself to 30 wasn't a good plan.
Mind if I roll?
If he had entered the Coliseum and humility that turn, he would have taken 2 this turn instead of taking 9 this turn.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Druid of the Claw.
Cydonia's only got 1 place to go to. Honestly, I don't even know if you kill the Loot Hoarder.
No, he's going to kill it anyway.
Yeah, just push. Every point of damage you get on DemiGod's face makes it easier for the Yogg to potentially finish. help. This
Needs
is
to be equality.
That's not going to do it.
All right.
So unless there's something insane that I'm forgetting about from this card, which those, not quite them.
Admirable Avenging Wrath.
Could go to 14.
Heal for 6, and next turn deal 8 damage randomly to everything.
Yep. Dead on board.
Yeah, you're right. It's bad.
So DemiGod going to drop the game with the Paladin deck. And this one I don't necessarily think was lost because of the build.
Yeah.
I think DemiGod approached this game a little bit poorly heading into the end of the Coliseum turn. He was facing down 7 damage, was able to heal the full. If instead he makes 1/1, heals to 30, drops to 23, he sees the Onyxia hit play, then has the option to end of the Coliseum Humility. Or if he plays the Ivory Knight gets run over, he ends up taking 3 damage instead, has Forbidden Healing with a Humility in hand, so he can take that option again the next turn. Either way, one of 2 things should happen. Comboing the Humility with End of the Coliseum, or developing the Ivory Knight. The play that he made, I think, was probably the least good of his reasonable options.
Yeah, and, you know, I can't help but feel that matchup is, I don't know.
It's really tough, though.
I think it's tough, especially the way that Cydonia has it built. It's pretty greedy. I mean, he's got a lot of minions. We saw Onyxia, we saw Ancient of War, probably 2. We saw Druid of the Claw, which actually isn't in many Druid lists at the moment.
That's a good point.
And that's like a pretty reasonably sized drop that has to be dealt with from a Paladin who's relying on you either building up the board really big or using one big minion that they can Humility or they can outdoor Peacekeeper. So those mid-range minions are tough. So I feel like that matchup was in Cydonia's favor anyway, but I don't know, maybe a few different lines from DemiGod might have made that play out differently. Either way, really tough. And now DemiGod has to win 2 games in a row, and I think they're 2 matchups that aren't that great. It's Dragon Warrior versus Shaman, which Dragon Warrior came to
one of the reasons the Dragon Warrior became a big
power,
thing.
yeah, because of Shaman, and Dragon Warrior versus Paladin, which I don't know the matchup because with Ivory Knights, I don't have enough testing. With Paladin in general, we haven't seen a big enough sample size. I don't know.
I'm going to find out because the game is getting underway right now. Either way, this Paladin deck has been the weak link so far. Something else that's really interesting to note about Cydonia running the Druid of the Claw in Druid is that Druid of the Claw happens to be incredibly strong versus Paladin because it soaks up True Silver Champion attacks.
Yeah.
That's a big deal in that matchup. In that one, it just was 4 charge damage, but the rest of what happened was a big deal too, and you know, largely on the back of Wild Growth. So here we go, Paladin versus Cydonia's Dragon Warrior. Here's kind of an interesting thing to note. Fiery War Axe is not very good versus this Paladin deck, I don't think.
Might even think about throwing it away if he had it. Of course, he got it from the mulligan. Oh, and a dragon picked up.
For the life binder.
Great opening for Cydonia. Blood to Ichor will be used basically at the first opportunity given.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
Look at
my.
this, Admirable.
DemiGod is just going to run into the worst case scenario on turn 3.
Yeah.
This literally could not have been better for Cydonia.
The thing is, DemiGod does have a reasonable way to deal with this. He's got True Silver Champion on 4 and the Bluegill, or True Silver Champion on 3 and the Bluegill on 4. So he does have a way to deal with it. He hasn't taken much damage. So
that's a really good draw. Now with this opener, so here's the deal. DemiGod has been at 27 and he has the True Silver to answer the early threats. With Wild Pyromancer and Equality, he's going to be free to take a few points of damage from Kor'kron Elite, Blackwing Corruptor, and use the Equality Wild Pyromancer in combination with the Solemn Vigil to reload and clear the board. And then after that, his plan is going to be to Aldor Peacekeeper and Humility, the big threats that Cydonia plays. Ragnaros is kind of the one that's the exception to that rule.
Yeah.
So Cydonia having that right now is actually pretty important. The fact that he can roll straight into it as soon as possible.
Maybe the Paladin deck's just really good against Dragon Warrior.
I mean, maybe, but
Dragon Warrior has very little reload. So once you clear the board, they're done for.
The reload is just in the threat potential.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you to some extent. But this is going to be really tough for DemiGod, I think, to keep this stabilized the whole time. You know, one of the things that's really strong about the decks that have the hyper curves, where they just go literally 1 through 8, and that's kind of their game plan, is when they get to their end game, if they just keep drawing big stuff, you're in bad shape.
Yeah.
And so Cydonia here will consider the Twilight Guardian over the Blackwing Corruptor, because True Silver Champion is on his mind a little bit. But given that he's seen one, I think I'd like to just see him go on curve, play the Blackwing Corruptor, and try to get to Draconid Crusher next turn activated.
So you go down to 21. The attack from the War Axe and the Blackman card will be enough, but you are kind of scared of Eldar Peacekeeper on Dragonid Crusher, because that's you using resources inefficiently to try and get to something.
Ends up going with the Twilight Guardian, which clearly that's a big plan of his, is to kind of stagger the resources a bit, so he doesn't give up too much. This just happens to be perfect versus what DemiGod drew.
Yeah. But can't be results oriented. This is Hearthstone after all.
Speak to me.
It's all about nuance, precision.
Reporting for duty.
Variance. Oh, that's not in the commercial?
No.
My bad.
That one's not there.
Jeez. Big whoops.
It's a tougher topic.
Yeah.
Is he leaving the 1/1 up? It's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better to leave it up. My only concern is when is the second Fiery War Axe actually coming down? And so because of that, having one equipped makes a lot of sense.
I think you want those Fire War Axes hitting the face, though. All right, well, Wild Pyromancer looks like it's about to hit the board, which means we're probably going to see an equality. He's got 2 of them, so might as well.
It's pretty good value at this spot. I mean, this is like the situation I think where DemiGod wants to use the first equality, is to keep himself above that 15 health marker comfortably, and then use the card draw to try to draw things to answer the next couple threats.
Yeah.
He's falling into like the perfect spot. I don't know if Cydonia can actually forego the Dragon Crusher here. He is going to play the Twilight Guardian.
He's playing this matchup real slow. And he's still going to set up for Dragon and Crusher next turn, but he's got Rag. I mean...
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at too, is Ragnaros is almost certainly coming down.
Especially after you've seen Equality. That's the only way that Paladins can answer that card, is Equality plus an Activator. You can't Eldar Peacekeeper Rag. Well,
you can, but...
You can.
Follow the rules.
Just doesn't really affect the way he hits stuff.
Mind if I roll knee?
Does get the Eldar Peacekeeper out of DemiGod, though, and that may have been something he's thinking about.
Yeah.
Was, if I just play threats, I think DemiGod will answer them. Whoa, Malkarok's in the build. This is something I haven't seen in quite a while. That's a big reason, I think, to get the Fiery War Axe online, in hindsight, is to get the maximum value from your cards so that when you draw Malkarok, you can actually use it properly.
I think Malkarok's becoming pretty common. I think Zixo used a list to either, to do what Zixo does. And he had Malkarok in it, and then everybody just started adopting that list. Or I don't want to give credit where credit's not due, so maybe it originated from somewhere else, but that's where I saw the list.
It was originally in the build a lot, and then it slowly started getting cut in favor of like Deathwing, which kind of eventually slowly turned into Onyxia, which now seems like it's slowly turning back into Malkarok. This could just be an additional Malkarok as well. Like, you could just have all the big stuff and also Malkarok.
Yeah. All right, well, there's one good target and one pretty poor target.
That's the poor one.
And it hits the poor one, I wish there was more of those pop-ups in Hearthstone that they give you when you taunt a minion with stealth. Like, oh, minion with stealth does not have taunt. It can't have taunt because it's in stealth. Like, more pops like that. Like, if you try an Eldar Peacekeeper Rag, a minion with Rag cannot be reduced. One. Or like, don't do that, stupid. Something like that.
Don't do that, stupid. Is a bit more fitting, I'd say. Or
I'm trying to think of like other uses for it. Like if you have Velen's Chosen and you're trying to Arcanine circle your board, but you're going to kill your own minions with your Circle of Healing. Sorry, Ignite. Had to do it. Hopefully he's not watching.
Ragnaros might say that's too soon.
Too soon, Executus!
Pretty strong turn here. If this Draconid Crusher does not make its way to the board, I just don't even know what's happening anymore. I'm blown away. I mean, I guess the Ragnaros is a big enough threat.
Yeah.
Do you really need an extra 6/6 on board right now? Would have gotten punished. So, good play for Cydonia.
Yeah.
Honestly, like in hindsight, this is way better because if the first thing that's got to get checked is this Ragnaros. If it doesn't get checked, Cydonia's going to win. So that's what he's thinking.
He also saw a 6-mana spell taken.
I wonder.
So it's either Enter of the Colosseum or Avenging Wrath, and either of those are pretty punishing if you play more stuff. because Avenging Wrath plus X plus equality. Like you think, well, he's used a couple activators, so he has to have equality plus that.
Yeah, we're going with Consecrate.
Yeah, but I love this over the Avenging Wrath because it allows him to get above 15.
Well, when you have the humility in hand, is being above 15 that big a deal? That's really interesting.
What is that?
Wow.
Yeah. You can tell it's a new card for Cydonia because it's not golden. Every one of his other cards is golden.
I just noticed that too. You're very observant today, you know that?
I'm on point.
To say the least. This Malkarok may be enough to draw a humility here. I'll tell you what, the Light Lord's looking pretty darn good though.
Yeah.
Maybe Light Lord and humility.
Let me think.
I really want to see the Ivory Knights played sooner than DemiGod's been playing them. It feels like he's been waiting a long time, and it's hard to spend 6 mana reactively. Like, you need to do something proactively with that card.
I mean, you might even like forget about that. It has a 4/4 body.
That's very interesting. I mean, does he favor like a 6 mana kind of removal card,
I think
or
it's
does he want
got
to draw more cards?
Coliseum.
I mean, look at Cydonia's hand. He's only got 2 cards in it.
Yeah. I mean,
so how much wider on board can he really go?
Well, but also at the same time, you use both your qualities. And again, Solemn Vigil, how much wider can the board really go? How many minions are you actually going to kill each turn? But maybe, yeah, he does want to dig. Maybe he needs to find the win condition. Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Just wants to find the rest of his Murlocs.
That'll spell humility for sure if he's taking the Solemn Vigil.
Yeah.
Because if he's taking the Solemn Vigil, what he's saying is time is the resource I need right now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Big stuff. You want something big?
I wonder if he's supposed to swing with the Eagle Horn Bow when he did.
I got something big.
I guess he did get a Forbidden Healing because he swung with the Eagle Horn Bow.
Yeah.
I think this is Grom. There's not a ton of activators in Dragon Warrior for this. It's like Blood Taker is about it.
Yeah.
So using it kind of as like an uprooted ancient it blows up something is really what this card ends up going most of the time. It's a good old 10-5
for 8.
Blows up 4 health stuff. It's pretty good.
Battlecry deal 4 damage. All right, well, there's a Murloc War Leader. So we're getting close. Anything can happen. Just feels so weak now. I don't know.
The Rag feels kind of weak to me here, too, because he's turned the Malkarok into a 1/5, and at this point, Cydonia's been holding on to these 2 cards for quite a while. So the likelihood that one is execute from DemiGod's position, pretty darn high.
Yeah.
So it's tough to really make a decision here about which way to go, because if he chooses to draw and the draw fails, that means he's going to take 11 damage next turn.
I just noticed. Does Cydonia have a steel beam behind him?
Whoa. I didn't notice that till just now. I thought it was just like it kind of just blended in with the background to me, and I just thought it was like a bookshelf.
Move quickly.
The beams are too easy, so I'm not even going to say him. But that is a steel beam.
Yeah.
It's 100% confirmed.
Well, this Avenging Wrath goes well, which it's not. And now DemiGod's going to need to pick up some major jet fuel if he's going to get past this.
There we go.
10! He just took 10!
That Avenging Wrath did 1 damage. Effectively. 6 mana, deal 1 damage to the thing on the board that you want to kill the most. That's what it did.
DemiGod's shaking his head now like, wow, what went wrong?
This might be it. He's got no equalities left. He's got 1 Aldor Peacekeeper left in his deck.
That Ragnaros could just be killed by the Dragon Crusher. We're going to try Ragnaros, but I mean, you're only healing me for 8, man.
Yeah, and you patronizing me is not helping. All right, X-Key would be huge, but it's a Fairy Dragon.
Cydonia does have to really consider the potential to just push face here and use Blood to Ichor on the Ragnaros. Because if the Ragnaros is damaged, there's a chance it heals itself instead of healing DemiGod.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the call here.
This is a win condition. This is a great spot for Cydonia to recognize that if this Ragnaros fails to heal DemiGod, that he's got massive damage on board.
And the board sweeps are gone, so Cydonia can feel free to load up the board. And I mean, there's double anything can happen, but it's summoning one Warlock War Leader and one Bluegill. I'm pretty sure. It might be 2 Bluegills, but
he may have to go for just hope that the Ragnaros heals himself in this spot.
I think he's.
Let me think.
I mean, can you get away with not clearing more board position? He needs to anything can happen right now.
Yeah. He needs to anything can happen and probably kill off the.
Well, he's not going to anything can happen if that's his first play.
No, I think he is.
No, there's no way you don't.
Oh, yeah,
you definitely don't attack first with it. Do it. That would make 0 sense.
You would. Well, you might. You'd attack the Fairy Dragon.
No, he's going for Solid Vigil here.
Oh, he's trying to find heals.
He's trying to find Humility or an Aldor as well.
Consecration. There's the Forbidden Healing.
Well, that'll heal him to 25. Looks like he's going to cut into that a little bit.
I think you got to play Acolyte in Forbidden Healing because you don't want to use too much of Forbidden Healing.
It's got to be the War Leader in Forbidden Healing.
Yeah.
Because you need to anything can happen next turn 100%.
Yeah. Acolyte Lord is actually probably better now on himself.
Oh my gosh. Patronizing himself at this point.
Yeah. Maybe it's kind of...
Honestly, Finley's not that bad.
Yeah, I guess. I'm trying to think.
It's way worse than Execute.
But do you want to give up armor up though?
Yes, you do.
Look how many cards
he's got to kill him.
has left.
He's got to kill him.
Okay. Oh, he picks a halfway point. Got to kill him. Still want to live.
I wonder if Cydonia maybe shouldn't have taken this risk. That's an interesting point. I still think I like it.
He's got like 2 cards left.
I still think I like the risk in hindsight. Because he's got Deathwing in his hand to recover, so like if everything goes awry, he just slams Deathwing.
Yeah. But Deathwing doesn't preemptively kill Murlocs.
No, it does not.
Deathwing, 10 mana, discard your hand, kill all minions on the board, and all future Murlocs as soon as they come into play. That's the buff that Deathwing needs.
Hungry Deathwing Crab.
Yeah, hungry Deathwing Crab.
Well, I think this might be... Yeah, he's got to attack the... That's the other thing, too, is he needs to attack the Malkrok and the Ragnaros here to give himself that percent chance again.
It's just a 10 mana crab that's disguised as Deathwing. Okay, well, Aldor Peacekeeper is a good draw, but he doesn't have many draws left in his deck, so it's really not that unlikely. But he's at 7. That's the thing.
The Finley's buffed by the War Leader.
Oh, my... I could trade it in, I mean, if he's really that scared.
Well, here's the deal. If he casts anything can happen now, he's going to die half the time. He's actually going to die half the time because Ragnaros will heal itself half the time.
Yeah.
So I think he's got Aldor here. Like Aldor trade.
Maybe he
Hope
can...
it works.
No, maybe he can... Okay, so he can actually, anything can happen, and then trade in, the War Leader will be buffed to 5, and the Blue will be 4, so he could kill the Dracony Crusher with it, and then attack in with the... He could leave a 2/2 on the board, is what I'm saying, and use an anything.
He's gonna leave nothing on the board and use Consecration instead.
Okay.
I think this is a bit stronger.
This is better.
This heal's still a big deal, though. That's really important. So Cydonia, I mean, I gotta believe it's Deathwing at this point. Yep. And so that heal to face means DemiGod gets another turn from this. And you know he's casting anything can happen here.
Yeah, but he needs 3 damage. He needs Korkorn Elite.
Fiery Orax, which he's out of those.
Doesn't have any Fire
Slam.
Orax. Can't have Alex Shimby's out of those, and even if he had it, you wouldn't be able to get a dragon at the same time.
It's got to be Korkorn Elite, exactly.
It's got to be Korkorn Elite.
Ragnaros is gone. Yeah, I think this is it. Like,
what else?
Look at DemiGod. He's like, am I actually going to win with this deck?
Yeah.
Oh, Cydonia picks up Korkorn Elite. He's going to end the game right there. DemiGod, hard-fought battle, but is going to drop the series 4-2 to Cydonia. I said it, TJ, I was worried about that Paladin deck as soon as I saw it was Murlocs. DemiGod goes 0-3 with the Murloc Paladin deck. Now, that being said, I do think he could have played the series with Murloc Paladin a lot tighter than we saw here.
It was pretty freaking close.
But that's one of those decks where you have to do everything picture perfect to get your edge.
Yeah.
And that's a deck that I think a lot of players should avoid unless they have the time to really practice those decks a lot.
Yeah. But to be honest, Cydonia played that last match almost flawlessly.
It was so good. It's
like nice trades, recognizing outs and win conditions. I mean, that came down to him needing a draw to win in a matchup where he had DemiGod had a great start, you know? So, I don't know. That was a series.
The only game I didn't like from Cydonia was the Warlock game, where he played into the Acolyte of Pain with Knife Juggler. It could have given DemiGod a lot more cards and just didn't get punished by it. But everything else in the series, like you mentioned, recognizing win conditions, understanding building board tension, reading the hand ranges really well. Cydonia put on a very good show here, and it's kind of showing exactly how strong of a player he is. You haven't heard of Cydonia a ton outside of the Spring Championships, but everything I've seen from him looks so good.
Absolutely. And DemiGod, unfortunately, he's going to fall. He was our open winner from this week. And keep in mind, guys, every single week we're going to bring an open winner here to try and challenge the invited player as well as the king. So if you guys want to sign up, you can head to esl.gg/KOTHHS and sign up for the next open. You guys might have a chance to compete on this King of the Hill stage. You might have a chance to win $500 if you can manage to take down the king. But most of all, you get that experience. You get that tournament experience, and that's pretty valuable. That's fun stuff.
Yeah, there's plenty of action going on with King of the Hill stuff. We also have Overwatch that's being broadcast after the Hearthstone segment. It's going on for a lot of weeks after this. So if you guys throw a follow to the channel here at twitch.tv/ESL, there's plenty more weeks to come with a lot of King of the Hill stuff coming up. But Cydonia going to take the series 4-2. He moves on now to face Ostkaka, last week's king. So is he going to be able to dethrone him, or will Ostkaka use that priest of the feast and have himself a piece of cheesecake?
We are going to see. Excited to see if Ostkaka is actually going to leave that priest up. But that match coming at you right after this break.